way there.
Clicking the button. Let me see if I can find my notes. Pulling up the notes. Here we go. Let's see if this works. Everything's working. All right. Yeah, we're doing this. Notes are up. Weekly scrap. Number 175. Today's guest is Benjamin Martin of Embrace the Resistance. He is currently an acting battalion chief in Henrico County, Virginia, which I'm not even sure that's accurate right now, but we'll talk about it. We will talk about it. He is one of the most sought-after speakers on the subject of leadership and culture development. His leadership articles have appeared Fire Engineering, Fire Rescue, FDTN, ISFSI, Firefighter Toolbox. Name it, it's out there. Like, go look it up. He's presented FDIC, Firehouse Expo, TEEX, FRI, and so many other places. Needless to say, if you want to really find a subject matter expert on psychology and leadership and culture development, he is a subject matter expert. I'm excited to pick his brain today and throw questions at him. So it's my pleasure to have you on as the guest of Weekly Scrap number 175. Welcome, my brother.
Thank you so much, Corley. And I'm going to have to start paying you more for that bio because you're definitely outrunning my $20. Minus the subject matter expert. I'm a little bit curious about a lot. So
SME, baby. There is no doubt about it. And I do not say that lightly. I don't throw that out there that often. I really don't. Anything I missed besides the $20? Anything I missed you would like to add?
No, I think at some point it'll all come out one way or the other. So let's jump in.
Audience, please get in here. Get your questions ready. Get them thrown at us because it's going to be a good discussion. I really do promise you that. Let's do the bookkeeping. Get your questions primed and ready for Benjamin and myself. I'll read your comments in a second. This one should get interesting. Join the Vigilantes. We have awesome discussions. The Vigilantes is something I push each and every time. If you want to have an impact on the scrap, go to firehousevigilance.com. Join the Vigilantes. $5 a month. You get exclusive content, exclusive discounts. Mute my phone. Exclusive discounts, exclusive merch, and you get to be a part of it. And that does that. So we go to the sponsors. Here we go. Let's get this done. This episode is brought to you by Key Hose. Check them out on Facebook, The Hose Experts. Rebecca's Angels. They provide mental health treatment to children and families suffering from trauma. Man, someone reached out to me and said, hey, she lost her leg in the Boston Marathon bombing. She started this foundation. It's a powerful, powerful thing. So I wanted to share it. Find them at rebeccasangels.org. Fire by Trade. Their namesake is a tribute to the view that our profession allows for craftsmanship, attention to detail, and pride. Man, I love Brian Brush. Yeah. We are honored to provide the best training, tools, and props to those in the industry who value quality, dedication, and hard work. Fire by Trade. Check them out, firebytrade.com. And finally, Affordable Drill Towers, home of the Affordable Drill Tower and the Affordable Standpipe Prop. Firefighter owned and operated. Pump and roll using the Affordable Standpipe Prop. The Affordable Standpipe Prop fits through most classroom doorways for standpipe theory. Then you can roll it right out into the parking lot and pump right to it. Comes with 6 standpipe valves that can be upgraded to PRVs or customized to what you have in your jurisdiction. Call Steve, 844-55-TOWER, or drop an email to info@affordabledrilltowers.com. And with that, we wrap up the bookkeeping and say, let's get it on.
And I feel like you were pitching me there. I want it all.
Yeah.
I'll take it all, especially the Brian Bush. I'm done.
Dude, I'm getting better and better. Is it not? Is it not like seductive almost?
Heck yeah, man. You're ready for the midnight hour with the telethon.
John McCoy said, let's scrap. Southwest Virginia, Station 32 in the house. Let's get that par report. Here we go from Lance Campbell. Virginia in the house from Chris Dye. There's some Virginia checking in, my brother.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It's late hour. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Here we go. There we go. That should be, this should be a good one. All right. I'm going to kick it off with a nice soft toss. Let me pull it up what I got notes here. And everybody, audience, people that are checking in, and they're still clocking in, they're still checking in. Jim Platt said, let's get it with 3 rocker horns. Let's get the rocker horns going. Absolutely. Let's start it off with an easy one. Get your questions in so we can throw them at Ben so we can discuss them. Soft toss, right out the gate. Number 1, what is the fire service getting right, and what are we missing the mark on completely when it comes to leadership?
So I think Um, I feel like at least, and maybe it's just because I'm traveling and I'm speaking, and I've got people reaching out. I feel like we're being a lot more intentional about what we're doing with our leadership training and development. So I think so much of what we've done, at least how I learned, was the kitchen table, right? Like it was the conversations we had as crew. You watched what your officer would weigh in on. You'd watch how everyone reacted when the giant chief showed up. Or you had, station captain was what we had, and you just kind of listen to the stories and you watch what people kind of nodded or shook their head no to, and that was kind of like your first feel good of, yeah, I should be do that. If I ever got this opportunity, I would do that, or I wouldn't do that. And then you pair that with it was done to you, or at least it felt like it was done to you, and you're like, man, I don't ever want to feel that way again. So typically, we do the opposite of that, or maybe they did it, and you're like, dude, that was slick. I mean, it was just I just really like. I think it galvanizes around feelings, man. I think you like how it felt, so you do it and you model it. Don't You didn't like it, so you do the opposite of it. But that was probably the extent of most of my training before I got a chance to do this over a decade ago, and I think that's for most people. And so in the class, I talk about this being like this like concept of like I'm ready, right? So I'm looking for this leadership opportunity. I'm ready. I've got some career experience. Maybe I'm a father, husband, so I've led someone at some point, and I'm just ready to go. And then the test comes, and then the rubber meets the road, and you're like, holy cow. So I think some of that is you don't know what you don't know. And I think
Right.
the older culture was you just kind of suffered in silence. Certainly my father growing up, he was a silent generation. I never saw him struggle with anything, being a dad or with my mom. And obviously you, you know that that's not the case. And I think the fire service is a lot of the same way, and we have the cliches of, you only complain up, you don't complain down. But I think sometimes it's taken too far and people will bring you their concerns and they want to hear what you have to say about it. And that's kind of their feel for what kind of leadership, they're looking for, or what they might do in the future. And so what I hope, what I feel like we're doing better is we're trying to be intentional about getting people some actual education. And that could be classes, but it also could be just mentoring, conversations, reading a book, listen to a podcast. Oh my God, dude, there's so much. I can't possibly listen to all the medium out there between the podcast and the Audible books. So that's fantastic. And obviously you see the books behind me. So I love trying to consume knowledge. And so having that in front of the test, but also paired with the humility of like, you're never going to have all the answers for this. So also building a network. And I think that's something the fire service is doing well too. We're focusing on kind of the resiliency, the mental health piece of, just being in this job, or just being alive. It feels like these days there's just so much getting thrown at us. But all of that because you're leading people and you don't get to shut off your personal life and you don't get to tell them to leave their feelings at the door.
Right.
I think all of these resources, these classes, these opportunities, these leadership academies, as well as the genuine conversations that are kind of soaked in humility and even a little bit of vulnerability too. I think all of that is putting us in a really good spot to kind of turn the corner to getting real about what it means to lead in
Right.
today's fire service and for the future. So, yeah, I'll start with that.
No, that's an awesome opening, and I want to dig in on some of it because one of the things you said was sitting around the kitchen table saying, "I want to do. I like that. I see that." And I'm paraphrasing you here, so bear
Yeah.
with me. But I see that. I want to do more of that. I don't like that. I'm not doing that. Right? How much of it? And this is the part that makes it so tough as you travel and see different departments, and you see the similarities and you see the dissimilarities. How much of it is so culture dependent on, like, bear with me as I expound, like a small department with 3 stations and 30 guys, and but they had one chief that was just like this profound keystone
Hmm.
versus exact same department 50 miles away that had this toxic person at the top. So how much of it is culture dependent in your opinion versus ownership? I
Oh,
don't know. I don't know what I'm asking, but I know you do. So go ahead.
yeah, I think I'm picking up what you're putting down. I think a lot of it, there's two facets to when we look at like culture being a form of like social infrastructure, like how we build people and teams. So the first is obviously culture. What do you believe? What are the norms? What are the things that are, we condone, whether they're written in policy or not? And obviously that has a lot to do with what we get away with, right? Because there are places that in their mind, their culture is winning and they're not. And it
Right.
takes a line of duty death or near miss or a lawsuit, because let's get real, like that's a lot of times when we get phone calls about bringing in formal programs of, hey, we just got sued for $3 million. Who knew you couldn't drop your nutsack on somebody's face? Like, oh, I thought it was team building. And it's like, of course you can't do that, man. Like, come on, right?
Right,
Not saying
right.
I haven't ever seen it done. But like, that happened. Well, I think it was like 2015. I read about that in FDNY. And I know there's tons of departments that are hurting with these lawsuits because people are applying old, let's call them tactics, right? Like, so the building construction of these cultures, so to speak, if we're going to use a metaphor, is changing. And these things, they light off faster. People light off faster. And so if you keep trying to do what you used to do in 20, 30 years ago, it won't necessarily see you successful here. Likewise, to your point about the different fire departments, the worst thing I think we could do is try to all be the same. Because I've got, 22 stations and 600 folks where I work. But if you work in a three station department, if your communication model is the same as mine and the frequency in which you see the fire chief is the same as mine, then you're not leveraging everything that you could be by being a small department. There are some solid things going on with small departments, even if they have less resources, whether it's fiscal, financial, or people. So take advantage of that. And that's the piece where you get into the other part of that social infrastructure is the climate. It's like, what do people pay attention to? Like, what gets them excited? What don't they like? What moves them? Because we usually we're almost like self-leveling, floor adhesive or whatever you want to call it, where like we'll go to the low points and try to build it up. And then as soon as we build up our side, we'll look over and there's a valley as well, and we'll go there. At least we should be anyway. So how we do that is different, just like your tactics on the fireground. You keep tacking, you tack a commercial building as you would a room and contents in a single family. You could get somebody hurt. And I think the same is true for leadership. You take advantage where you can. You leverage the talents and the strengths and the passions you have of people. I don't feel like we do that enough. I really feel like we're stuck in that we have to stay in one lane, one role. And then if we get out of that, we're stepping on people's toes, or we can't check in on other people because they're not our people or whatever that is. Like,
or even worse, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, I say even worse, to carry the analogy, you do apply the room and contents residential fire tactics to the commercial and have success, at which point you think, oh, this is the way to go. And that drives something forward to the future where it is absolutely has nothing. You just got lucky.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think the best thing we could do is just share our stories, share our wins, share our losses, and more importantly, share the why of those. Why did you win? Not just that you got lucky. Why did you lose? Like, what do you think? What was the special sauce that we need to do more of based on your story? Or what do we never, ever want to do again because we almost really lost somebody? Because, I mean, we can kill somebody in the fireground, but we can also kill careers in the firehouse just as
yes.
And I've seen too much of that, unfortunately.
No, that is the bigger, not the bigger loss, but much higher frequency.
Yeah.
Is that fair? No. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We'll call those your exposures, right? You never want to lose the building, and that's certainly someone's life. But the exposures are the careers of the folks, because we have a real strong sense of justice. We can say we don't care or we're not whiny or whatever, but you want to know what's wrong. Take that issue to the firehouse and let the firefighters bring it up. Like, Elon Musk will never invent any kind of technology that can beat the super computing power of 3 to 5 firefighters at a kitchen table and a cup of coffee. They can think of things you will never ever think of, solve problems or invent problems that you never ever will. So yeah, I mean, good question, Corley. I like where your head's at.
No, I love it. I love digging in. Questions coming at you. Crew First Culture, Jeremy says, it just left, but basically he said, I'm happy to be here. I'm trying to keep up. What's going on? Yeah, I like that. I'm getting to the question because there was questions coming at you. Jeremy said, I'd love to hear from him to discuss how he compares culture to the apps on an iPhone.
Oh, very good. Well, let me say this about Jeremy too. I had a book show up. Jeremy knows that I'm a nerd, and one of the things I'm doing with my dissertation is I'm having to read a lot about culture. And that dude, True First Culture, took it upon himself to contact the author of one of my favorite books and had that thing signed. That guy's like 94 years old. I don't even know how he tracked him down.
Wow.
But you talk about the amount of time that it took. And I know he's busy. He's got his own life and his own crew to take care of. But I don't know if there's anything more powerful than being thoughtful for somebody else, like to be thought of, and especially a way that's very unique, and carved out to you and your passions. Like, I appreciate it, Jeremy. You're awesome, dude. You're a rock star. All right. What was this question? Something about
iPhone.
technology.
Something about iPhone's
Right.
technology, comparing the apps.
Yeah. So, and this is a little bit getting into kind of like operating systems. So, have you ever come across a leader who looked at you and he's like, "I'm a good leader," or this is my favorite, "I'm a humble guy." Corley, I don't know if you know that. Like my trademark, I'm a people person. I've got humility and whatever, right? So they're words. But the reality is, your actions are going to show me what it is. And a lot of people will talk, but the actions are harder piece. But if you pay attention to their actions and the words, what I really think you get is basically the operating system that their beliefs are based in. So if you believe in the servant style of leadership, or you believe in charismatic leadership or transformation, whatever style leadership theory you've got, then your deeds and your words should reflect that. So, for me, I look at the technology much like your phone. I think we were talking about this the other day too, where, nobody's running around with a BlackBerry phone, but that used to be the
De
thing that
facto, the
everyone,
thing, yes.
yeah, I mean, $1 billion industry, right? And then the needs, and what's funny is technology exists to solve the needs of people, but sometimes you have disruptors where you didn't even know you needed that. Like I didn't know I needed an iPhone, but now it's like I couldn't live without it, or an Android, or whatever your equivalent is. But so we jump the curve, we go to this new technology, or we update our operating system, our beliefs of what leadership is and should be doing. But at the same time, you can only update that software so much before the hardware really starts getting tested. And I think about our folks that have been on 20, 25, 30 years, how much change, how many different directions, how many different fire chiefs, different uniforms, different policies, different attaboys, and all of a sudden it's not allowed anymore. Can you absorb in a 25, 30, 35-year career? And at some
Right.
point, it's like, it's too much. So at some point, the hardware is not going to want to update, and hopefully they're in a position that they can retire and live successfully and happy. And like, I really mean that. But for those of us still doing it, we've got to be able to look around the curve and say, all right, what's next? Like, what's the workforce asking us for? But not surrendering our values and the mission that we started this fire service in. Like, it's not about catering to them, I don't think, ever, but it's about how do you engage them? How do you motivate them? How do you speak with them in a way that they like coming to work and serving the citizens, and making sure that that's the value that comes out. So it might be the way where you go to the app store and you're like, all right, well, I don't have an app for empathy or compassion. And you're like,
Right.
really? That's what you need as a leader? But like, yeah, I can tell you that's absolutely what you need. At a minimum, empathy. But if you can get into an area where you lead compassionately, which is to lessen the suffering of another individual, like you can do some stuff. You don't think people are going to migrate to you when you're willing to put the time and effort in to help them with their careers and their personal life, if they so choose to share with you that piece of it in a
Right.
way that they don't feel like their dignity is attacked, or that you've got some sort of agenda, that you are genuinely, I don't care what you call it, that I'm genuinely there to serve those people. Heck yeah, like people are going to be dying for that, especially in another 2 or 3 years as Generation Z on boards with what they're looking for. So I think in any instance, I'm not saying you got to abandon your beliefs, but I think you need to be constantly scanning, just like you would anything about how strategy and tactics play out on the fireground. You need to make sure that you're validating that your beliefs are matching what you're seeing. If you still were doing strategy and tactics with a legacy construction mindset, but that was not the type of buildings in your area, then you'd be behind the curve.
Right.
And you wouldn't feel foolish updating it. You'd learn. I mean, the idea that you stay curious until you retire, or the day you stop learning is when you should go ahead and hang up the coat. It's the same thing for leadership too. Like, and for those of us that have been doing this and rounding the 20-year mark and working on 25 and 30, you've seen some stuff, you've got some intuitions, you've got some beliefs. So it's easy to fall into those kind of default, like, I know this, I know this. And you miss the blind spots that are coming. And people are full of blind spots, man. And they are constantly trying to put you in a position that if you merge, you're going to end up hitting something that you shouldn't.
Right.
Because a lot of times they don't know where they need to be. So the idea, what Jeremy's talking about and going back to the operating system is, and again, look for this, look for how people speak to others and look how they carry themselves and look what they do when they're in these leadership roles. Um, the BlackBerry, the 1.0 is, I think most leaders want to be liked. You can say, no, I don't care what people think, but that's a fundamental aspect of pretty much most human needs is a desire to connect and relate to others because we're tribe people. So we'll call it 1.0, right? I want to be liked by everybody.
Right.
And then obviously that lasts all of like 5 seconds, you know, so you can't do that forever. And then I think most people fall into somewhere around like a first, second, third generation iPhone, and they might have the most current software, but they don't have all the features that they could have. And they end up on Leadership 2.0. And I think that's where most careers finish, which is if I can't be liked by everybody, then I want to be respected by everybody. And I actually had a guy in class the other day say feared. And I was like, oh, now that is an interesting answer. Like that's leadership 0.5, 0.5. Like that
You're
is
going
out of the,
backwards.
yeah, you're going
Yeah.
back in time,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's a lot of stuff that you would hear like drill sergeants,
Sure.
in World War
Sure.
One and World War II say. So again, technology needs society updates and all that stuff. So then, but you probably know this, Corley. I am I am not liked nor respected by everyone. Not nearly.
What?
And sometimes, no, imagine that. It's crazy. It's crazy to think about. If you know how much I was wrong, you'd understand why some of that is. No, man, I stumbled. I didn't update the software, and I focused on being right over top of making people feel like work was a place that they could come and pursue mastery, at their own pace. And I
Right.
overworked them, and
No, I understand
um,
that completely.
you couldn't tell me anything. I was intimidating. I love the job, and unfortunately, I think I cost some people their love of the job because I wanted them to love it the way I did. But and it was a number of years before I was like, well, if you can't be liked by everybody, you can't be respected by everybody. Then what the hell is the like? What the hell? Like, what's the belief you should have as a leader?
What's the point?
And
Right.
and over the last 8 years, like I believe this, I see this in my department in terms of the amount of conversations I'm able to have and the problems that people allow me. It is a privilege to talk to people, Corley. I cannot say that enough, man. I have had people that I'm supposed to take care of as a leader that do not talk to me because they do not like the way they feel. When they talk with me, they didn't respect me, whatever it was, and they took away my privilege of leading. They very much reported to me on paper. I technically could probably tell them what to do. Like they might roll their eyes, but they would do it. But once you've had that where you walk into a room and you can tell that nobody wants to hear what you have to say, even if you have to talk to a shithead, you genuinely enjoy that conversation because you understand it is a privilege to have that. So seeing how much how much opportunity has come my way in my department and elsewhere in speaking, I think I have arrived at leadership 3.0 is this. It's not about whether people like you, and it's not about whether people respect you. What matters most, and which be operating as your leadership belief, guiding every action and deed and word that you speak to people, is what matters most is that people like and respect themselves more as a result of their time together with you.
Because they're
And
with you.
and that's you
Dude,
have a
that's strong.
dude, you have a hard conversation with them and they get some truth, but you gave it in a way again that didn't attack their dignity and in a way that didn't have an agenda like I'm going to get promoted off your back. That
Boom.
like everybody's got a good bullshit filter. So you gave them some truth, or you gave them a safe place to try something without worrying that you were going to turn around and talk shit about them, which
Or yeah.
unfortunately I see
Or
so many
bury
people
him.
do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. That you genuinely cared about them. Like they felt that. Like they felt so safe around you in the firehouse that they would go literally to hell with you on the fireground because they trusted you in every context of that word. And I don't think that people trust their leaders as much as they would like to say. And I think leaders overestimate the trust that they think they've got. And that position, that rank, that bugles, that doesn't guarantee you anything. Corley, you know that.
Oh,
So
100%.
you focus on people getting good at their job where they feel good about doing what you're asking them to do, and then you focus on making a team that people feel like they belong there and they go back to the firehouse and they can be proud of the work they did and they want to share it with the people they're with, then that's the fire department I want to come work for. And that's like we've got a lot of that in my own department right now.
And I'm going to try
So
and articulate this thought that I have in my head right now because what you're saying to me, man, is beautiful. I love when you say like and respect themselves more because they're in your presence, and not just because of you, but because of what you fostered and things like that. So take it as I mean it. But what I'm saying is, I think like I am the American Fire Service. I work in suburbia. I work in a 4-station, 66 guys, 22 per shift department. We cross staff trucks. They're a quince. They're not trucks. We call them trucks. Blah blah blah. All that stuff, right?
Hmm.
But at the end of the day, I'm trying to foster that whole what you're talking about, just that belief and that trust. And what I'm trying to get at and dig into and get there shortly and succinctly is like in wartime, in the war zone, in job town, that stuff. Obviously, a bad boss getting in charge of a house could drive it into the ground. But when you're making jobs, every day, 5, 6, 7 times a day, and then a good leader was in charge of that, that's the stuff that just kind of drove the magic, right? And then you
Yeah.
take Jobtown out of it, but we're still trying to manufacture that, and that's what we're talking about. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll say this too, like just to clarify, it's not about when they're around you either. It's about being a result of their time together with you, meaning once they've gone on and you've retired or you've left them or they've been promoted ahead of you or you were promoted elsewhere, like there's still that feeling. And to take it to a personal level, like when my father passed away, my wife made a little plaque with his picture of it, and it's in our front bed here. And when I walk by, every once in a while, I'll stop and just talk with him and just see how things are going and kind of give him an update on the kids and everything. And there's that feeling like I'm not perfect, Dad, but you did a good job. Like you sweat, you sacrifice. I know I wasn't a perfect kid, but I like and I respect myself because of you. And obviously, he's not here anymore.
Right.
So it's, and it doesn't mean that they have to be off in another life or another lifetime, but like that's the power of your emotions where it carries you well after that stimulus or well after that person or the event or whatever has passed. And if they'll reflect on that positively, because it's not job time every day, dude. Like
Right.
those feelings, I think, are what carry you in the moments that are not necessarily as interesting. I don't want to stand in the rain for 6 hours on the side of the interstate on a, vehicle extrication while we cut a guy that's obviously did have a car because we had to wait on the crash team to do an investigation. But I'll do it because that's what a professional would do. And, but if that's all my job was, probably if that's all the only feeling I ever had to exercise, it's probably not what I would be doing for a living. So
Right on.
there's those other moments that carry me through that, and I think that's life in general, man. The highs and the lows, and just knowing it's enough to get you through there.
I want to hit you with Robert Ramirez. He hit you with 3, like really good looking, flexing biceps. Not like this one, but much better than that one. That was Robert Ramirez. And then Sean Duffy said, "Wait, you can't do that." And I'm pretty sure he was referencing some sort of nutsack on a forehead, but that was you, not me.
My
So,
man. Well, Sean, I hope you see what
yeah,
I'm wearing.
repping the build your culture. Which, hey, I will say this: my favorite hat ever was a build your culture hat. Had a lion Maltese right here, is in gold right on the side, and I got a puppy who said he liked it more than me, and destroyed it. And Sean said, "No problem, I got you covered." Still not covered. Just saying.
Oh man,
Live on the scrap, calling him
that's
out.
right. You're on blast, Sean.
There we go. No, 100%. I'm kidding. But I like this question because it has to do with podcasts. Are you a podcast guy? First of all, I'll ask you that. Obviously, you go on them, I know. But do you listen a
Yeah.
lot?
I listen. I don't listen to as many fire service podcasts as
Right.
I could.
I'm with
'cause
you. I'm 100% with you.
I fear being siloed by that,
Hmm.
right? So I listen to a lot of stuff that's outside that, I mean, if you're leading people, I think it translates regardless of what the mission is for the most part. But yeah,
I've already lost who asked it. But long story short, they said, "What's the most educational podcast you listen to?" And so
Ooh,
I want to throw it at you. I'll throw mine out there, but I like the question, so I wanted to get it out there to you.
that's good, right? And
Yeah.
of course, I'm on my phone right now, so I can't thumb through that and see that. But so there's a couple. So first, I have to give a shout out to my man Robbie Owens that does the Average Jake,
Average
podcast. 'Cause
Jake, baby.
we work together. B, he's my best friend and a rock star. So, or one of my
And
best friends. So I got
also
to
a
give him a
scrap.
shout out.
previous
Yeah, and
scrapper.
also,
Yeah.
yeah, fantastic scrap, by the way.
Yes.
But there's one that Adam Grant does, who is an industrial psychologist, which is what I'm training to do. That he changed it. I think it's rethinking or rethink now. But it basically is just
Think
brain
again. Yeah.
science. Yeah, think again. Yep, yep.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's good. So I'll listen to Joe Rogan and stuff, and the main thing is I try to find stuff that doesn't confirm what I already know or even satisfy my wheelhouse. Like I'll try to find stuff that genuinely makes me uncomfortable thought wise to listen to or isn't necessarily as interesting if I think it could offer some value to make sure that I'm trying to round myself off and not allowing a blind spot to
Right.
exist on that stuff. But I've got, I've got Jeremy's, I've got pretty much I've got Jim's, I've got I've got pretty much every fire service one on there, but
Right.
I do a
Yeah.
lot of stuff Harvard Business Review. Like
Yeah.
I do a lot of stuff with those.
I want to throw mine out real quick just because I wanted to answer the question. I was sitting there when I think about it. I was like, anything by Huberman. I love Huberman and everything he does. If you don't listen to him, go look up Huberman and just scroll through his topics, and it's awesome. MCTI, Mission Critical Teams Institute. I do not know which scrapper gave me that. And so if you want to claim it, someone messaged me on Facebook and said, have you ever heard of this podcast? And I was like, no, I haven't. But basically their whole motto is to deal with rapidly emerging complex, let me get it right, to deal with rapidly emerging complex adaptive problem sets in 300 seconds or less where the consequences for failure are catastrophic. Yeah, got it right. And
Dude, that's a lot.
that is the premise of their podcast. And it's amazing. So MCTI, a great one. And then finally, my personal one I'm on right now, History That Doesn't Suck, which is just American history done by a really good, well done thing. So anyway, I wanted to, and of course, someone said the scrap, of course, but the scrap's not.
What?
Yeah.
I've never heard of it.
No.
Never heard of her.
That's why it's called the scrap. It's leftovers. Let me try and catch up. Change capacity. It's not that people want to do the wrong thing. It's they don't know what the right thing to do is anymore because it has changed so many times before they have had the chance to truly learn it. That's coming from Sean Duffy talking about, and we're still talking about change capacity. Sean Duffy, someone said facts. John McCoy said facts. Facts. I'm just catching up here. I'm trying to catch up, everybody. Jump seat leadership. Chase said, this guy is crushing it. And he does. And absolutely. Chase, love you, brother. Jordan Smith,
Yeah, thanks, Chase.
not even mining for gold tonight. Ben is throwing gold bars our way. That comes from Jordan Smith. I'm trying to catch up. We're almost there. Okay, I'm going to read this one. Crew First Culture said, leadership is becoming more of an art form as time goes by. A single leadership style will get you nowhere nowadays. Leaders have got to educate themselves to learn how to lead in ways that aren't comfortable because of the cultural and generational diversity that exists. It's a great opportunity to really stretch our abilities. Thoughts?
Yeah, no, I mean he's spot on. So, what's interesting I'm like 6, 7 months out from the dissertation being done, and I've come across over 400 different definitions of leadership, and there's over 80 styles, theories, models of leadership that I found since like the 1860s. And going back to the technology thing, like that's basically all the research is, right? Like a problem pops up in society or a shift. So like your industrial revolution or your wars, or your agricultural revolution or
Right.
your thinking economy, or what you're seeing now with the hybrid work environment post-COVID. And obviously that causes a shift, right? Like Newton's third law, reaction or action reaction. And so researchers are basically just constantly scanning the environment. And when they see a group that's winning or that's losing, so to speak, they just go there and they're basically just studying, like, what are you doing? What's the secret sauce here? Or what did you do that led to this Enron, like, Bernie Madoff, like stuff like that.
Right.
And
Right.
that whatever like they get through the research and then that later is validated, that becomes the latest greatest style, and that's becomes what the latest greatest theory is. But that doesn't necessarily help practitioners. It's great to say like these are the characteristics of servant leadership, or this is what trait theory is. Or by the way, like the first leadership theory that I can find is called the great man theory, like in the mid 1800s. So you were born a man, and that was your opportunity to be great, but you couldn't develop leadership, and you certainly couldn't do it if you were a woman, like according to these people. But again, that's what they were studying, was what was happening. And if you couldn't vote, and you weren't making decisions, and you weren't in positions of leadership, then how could they possibly see how wonderful women lead?
Right.
So of course you gotta get rid of that theory and update it. And so many theories, what's old is new again. That one not so much, but a lot of those, like the literature, just cycles, because there's only really so many things that we can do at the end of the day. Technology, allows us to, like, we couldn't have a hybrid work environment without technology. So if you were smart enough to buy Zoom stock prior to the pandemic, then you probably did pretty well. But for
Right.
the rest of us that didn't, we tried to figure out, like, what is it to work from home? If you were an office staff or in the fire department, we had a different challenge. Like, people were scared to come to work. They didn't understand what it was, and they didn't want to take stuff home to their families. So all that to say is, yeah, like, you have to have your head up on a swivel, looking to see the landscape of what people are presenting with. What are the stresses? What's scaring them? Like, what excites them? And then, you hope that you have a skill set. And if you don't, go get it. You learn tools. You learn things on the fire ground. You got better. God, thank you. We can do that as leaders. Like, some leaders are greater than others out the gate, and some people don't have a temperament or a certain style that I would say would be conducive to long-term success in leadership. But for everybody else in between, you can take classes and inventories and read books and podcasts and gain life experience or gain professional experience and get better. And that's pretty cool. And that's hope. That gives me some hope too, because I struggled out the gate. It wasn't that we didn't have any problems. I thought I was winning because I wasn't really looking. It was kind of like, it's called an ostrich bias. Just put your head in the sand, and you're like, oh, I must be doing well because there's no problems in here in this hole.
Right.
But meanwhile, everything else happens around it.
Right.
So yeah, like who we're hiring, and the generational differences we have, which by the way, I mean, if you don't know a lot about those, they're basically just what strategies and what tendencies have people developed as a result of living either during or after, like, such as the children of the people that lived during life, And so, like, I was a latchkey kid. Both my parents went to work. And so, in the afternoons I played outside, but then I started playing video games. So I've known a world without computers. I can be sufficient just reading a book. I don't have to be excited all the time, but I do enjoy technology. And, like, everybody's got their own little challenges. And obviously all those tendencies show up to work because we live at the firehouse. We call it a firehouse for a reason. So it's not that they're any less or more qualified or any less or more capable. It's just the fact that, like, the influences that shape them, a lot of that was from their parents. And that may be different than how you were raised. So you're just going to have to be mindful of that and learn to download an app and update your software, and then hope that's enough at the end of the day.
So let me ask you this. This is my own thought experiment here. We go back in time. We'll go Marcus Aurelius, back in the day. And then we can go, and then we can fast forward a few centuries and go Napoleon Bonaparte. And then we can fast forward to right now, Benjamin Martin, right? Do you think there's been a massive difference? Or is it, basically what I'm trying to ask, is it become more simplified or has it become more complex over time?
Oh, well, not knowing, obviously, not having a time machine.
Sure,
Um,
sure.
I feel comfortable
Speculation,
saying,
completely speculative.
yeah, if I had to speculate, I would feel pretty comfortable that I would say now is the hardest time to do it, because you have all the advances that come with technology that make it easier. But what's changing around us is the pace. And the pace is what, when they talk about that capacity for change, if you're a sponge and you can only absorb so much change before you're wrung out with rest and relaxation or whatever it is, where things get formalized and they become part of your culture, and they go from having to consciously think of everything that's changed, it just becomes part of your autopilot and no big deal. And then you can process on the new change. The pace is faster than it's ever been before. And you see this in all facets of life, not just the fire service. Medicine used to take decades before it would fully evolve. And now, it could be as little as 3 or 4 or 5 years, or even faster.
Right.
And so the pace of change is kind of like when you learn to drive. You were most comfortable probably in your neighborhood, slow. But Lord help you the first time you got on the interstate, right? And all the cars are like,
Boom.
and they're just going by you. And even if you're not going fast, out of your periphery, you feel like you're getting left behind and you're not moving fast enough. And in any situations, time or the lack thereof, that true pressure cooker scenario is the stuff that really gets people into making snap judgments, bad judgments. And so I think the availability of information, how much there is, we have not really caught up. Our brains have not caught up on the ability to do that. We didn't have artificial light when we evolved. So we went to sleep, we got up with the sun. We didn't have, thousands and millions of pages that we could read and podcasts that we could listen to, for different thought. Like there was no diversity of thought. Like we were siloed in our tribe, and new was bad and new died. Like we chased new away because we were so scared that something was going to happen. So like that is always going to be our primitive brain, that fight or flight. And so those social threats about, well, if I don't know the change, does that mean I'm as important? Does that mean I'm not promotable? Does that mean I'm not respected? Those things are always at play in conversations. And, when people are presenting like, this is the direction we're going now,
Right.
you can't help but sometimes get your identity caught up in your career. But like, never to say I am the fire service, but like you do come to expect things will be done a certain way. And when it's presented to you differently, you're like, wait a minute, holy crap. And then you feel like your stock price is dropping and everyone's selling you. And you're like, no, I'm valuable. I'm still worth something here.
Right.
So, yeah, I think the pace in which information is changing as well as the amount of information, I just don't think we're wired for that. It's going to take us a while to figure it out. And we haven't even gotten to the artificial intelligence, like all the stuff I'm seeing, because I haven't honestly spent any time researching it. But that is going to absolutely change the landscape for how we communicate and how we write and how we read and how things are written, that we learn. And it will be interesting to see what that means for the
Right.
fire service moving forward.
No, I love the answer. The pace, it's not so much the amount of knowledge so much as the pace that it is passing you, trying to process, etc.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I doubt Marcus Aurelius had a rat race, a feeling of a rat race, if I had to guess. So,
Or Napoleon when he was on, yeah,
yeah.
depending on the section. Okay, some good questions coming at you from the audience. I'm going to throw one at you. David James Stone says, "Hey Ben, has your passion for the job alienated those you worked with?" And he put in parentheses, "in the past." And
$100%.
how did you recognize that behavior? If so, how have you adjusted your leadership to correct that behavior? And he finished it with buckshot style question.
Yeah, I love it. So yes, yeah, I've had people close doors on me, relationships, because I was just too much, too intense, and so I'm like, if you're trying to figure out what that might look like super aggressive, super type A, like I'm happy to train all day. Like, man, when I was young, if there was a conference or a training offering that I could drive to within 2, 3 hours, I was there. I was like, I got to the point that sometimes I wouldn't even hang out with people because I'd be reading books on the fire service. I was just so determined to be really strong at my job. And I could throw ladders for 8 hours, come back the next day and throw ladders for 8 hours. I just loved it. But now, obviously, as I get older, my body doesn't so much. Um, and now the crazy thing is you don't even always know that that's how you're coming across some way. But every once in a while, you'll see it. Like somebody will ask a question and they'll get super excited to answer it. And you're like, man, I didn't even want to know all that. I was just trying to be polite. I was just trying to make conversation. And then you went down a well hole. Like this happens to me sometimes. People trying to be polite and I'll start talking about leadership and you can just see their eyes gloss over. Um, so the remedy of that was a huge bolus of humble pie,
Right.
and then grace, and then a little layer of curiosity, right? So um, I think there's a big difference between the seasons that people live their careers, and when you're single and you don't have a family, you can go all in if that's what you want to do, or
Right.
travel. That's cool too. Because I wish I'd done more of that. To be honest with you, I'm a workaholic, and that's caused quite a bit of pain. and frustration for me and my family over the years,
Sure,
and
sure.
even me at work, if I'm being honest. But then you get married, and maybe your focus shifts, but then you get promoted, and then now your work shifts back to or your focus shifts back to work, and then you have a kid, and then so your focus should shift back to home. And so the seasons pieces, like when it's warm and it's sunny and it feels good, like spring and summer, those are growth times in your professional and your personal life, and that's where the focus should be, respectively. But if it's not there, then the other part would be like fall going into winter. It's dormant. So I think about somebody that's got 24, 25 years on the job. They're leaving in 6 months for retirement. They're probably in a fall season, right? They don't want to go all out and hurt their knees and end up bum for the job. They may not be the most aggressive person. They're thinking about other priorities like holding their grandkids and getting to enjoy a well-deserved retirement, things like that. But if our rookies had that same mindset where they should be very much in spring and summer, like everything's sexy and exciting and everything, then like that matters. So I guess what I'm saying is I'd learn to be a better weatherman. Like I'd learn to predict those seasons a little bit better, and I would plan my activities based on who's in my presence in, in those seasons. I can remember guys telling me, Ben, we're tired. We're up all night. We're training 2, 3 hours every day. Today's Sunday. Can we have some downtime? And my answer was like, yes, you can train. No, 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 no. We want some downtime. Yes, you can pull a hose. And it's like, I wish I had that one to do over again.
Right.
So, um, you know, maybe there's a word for that. Like, I don't know, maturity. So, and that's not to say that I'm still not hard charging, because we do training on Saturdays as a command team all day, and we're there for 8, 9 hours. Like when there's training as a command team, as an active battalion, we go. So like a lot of times I'll leave the office 7:30 in the morning after getting there at 5 or 5:30 in the morning, and then I'll get back till 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night, and then I'll be up all night running calls. And that's sanctimonious is a word. It's a good word for this, but I don't want you to ever hear it. Like when people feel like you're lording something over there morally or with certain virtue, like I'm high and mighty, they're not going to want to be around you long, man. So just don't, just knock that off and have some humility to know that you may not have all the answers, and it's okay if they're not in the same season of their career and excitement as you are. But if they feel value and they like and respect themselves around you, they'll show up and give you their best. And that may be a C level performance, and that may be what you get, and that may be have to be okay. And
Right.
hopefully you get some A players around that. But you know, I didn't allow any downtime or rest, and that gets old, especially with people that have lives, and drags around them for certain other things going on. So I hope
Absolutely.
that makes
Absolutely.
any sense.
No, it does. It does absolutely. I mean, to anybody who's ever been there, absolutely it makes sense. And BJ Breacher said, "Did he just say bolus in quotation marks?" And yes, he did. So,
Yes, I did. Got to work that EMS in there.
100%, 100%. If you are dropping, just refresh. It is something with Facebook where you have to refresh to connect back in. There are people dropping, and there is frames dropping, but that's okay. Yeah, I know, Brad Brown. They say drop connection again. I'm watching it happen live. Don't worry, we're still recording. The recording will still be available. We're still going to keep going because we're almost an hour in. We're going to keep it going. Um, soiled. Yeah, there was one I wanted to ask you here. I saw it. Hey Ben, has your passion? Yeah, we got that one. Ben is putting into words what we were all experiencing. Absolutely. That's one of his gifts. 100%. There we go. We're still going. Okay. Making sure. It's fighting through. The internet is fighting through. Refresh it if you can. And if not, enjoy the recording later. Don't worry. We're late into it and we're going at it. Pulling up the notes here. Going to the questions. You've traveled the country, taught leadership everywhere. Is poor leadership an epidemic in the fire service? Almost like a soft toss I wanted to give you earlier, but we got really sidetracked with a lot of audience questions.
Yeah, well, perfect. I'm very thankful for their questions and people tuning in. So I don't think so. I don't think it's an epidemic. I just spent a week over in Redmond, Washington, and what a fantastic department, Corley. I mean, I was begging them, taught the program 8 times over 4 days. I was begging them to complain. I was like, please, bitch, something. Tell me something's going wrong here. And they're not perfect. Nobody's happy about COVID vaccine mandates and stuff like that. But
right,
the healthiest culture I have probably ever seen in over 20 years. I mean, and it started at the top as much as it did at the bottom. It was like leadership throughout all levels, including the firefighters, because they're leaders. And they were just so concentrated on doing what it took to get what they needed to be able to do for the citizens that like it was fun. Even in the down times for them and the tough times, it was fun. And that's a place I'd work in a heartbeat. And I got a lot of time around some of their deputy chiefs and their fire chief. And it was beautiful because what they believed, was showing up in their words and deeds. And that was being modeled.
It's refreshing. We'll see. All right. Book or books that you think firefighters should be reading.
So I got a few of those. Now,
okay.
Problem with my stuff is a lot of it is super thick, academic, like 600, 700, 800 pages. It's like, ugh. But there are a few ones. Let me just turn around here that I really like. You got Dave Grossman's On Combat, which is a good one to read. We've got, Chris Voss, Never Split the Difference. You ever read that one?
Oh, yeah, the negotiator from FBI. Yeah. Dude,
So
I love
what's cool is I read that and then I reread it, but I read it from the lens of how do we negotiate meaning? Like, why is it that people leave the same conversation with different meanings? And why is it that sometimes you say something and it comes out a different way or they hear a different message? And so when I went back and reread that through that lens, it just blew my mind. And I've started dropping things in there to do that. There is a book. I mean, there's Simon Sinek. Anything Patrick Lencioni is fantastic. Thinking Fast and Slow, which is it's a long read.
That one's dense. I'm not gonna lie.
I think it's Marquette. I'm looking for it. It's Leadership as Language, and
Marquette. Second book, yeah,
and he does a really nice job of working the science in, but also relating it back to his naval experience. And so that's I think that's a really good one to start at if you wanted to just kind of figure it out. I've got stuff on conflict. Dave Ramsey's a good author too. Ironically enough, I read one called The Courageous Follower that I thought was really good. I got in a moment where I didn't feel like I was really struggling, man. I just could not understand what the leader's intent was. And so I just started gobbling up follower books that were written from that lens. And I was like, this is your uncomfortable area right now. You want to be in charge. You want to make the decisions, but that's not what you're being asked to do, you know? And you don't just get the opportunity to take your ball and go home and shut up and not. Like you've got to support this, even if you don't agree with it, and even if you don't understand it. And like that can be one of the hardest things to do, but you got to do it anyway. And so like reading those books on that stuff was good. I do a lot of the Harvard Business Review, the stuff on emotional intelligence
Okay.
as well. But yeah, I think that's probably it. I mean, I know you got a solid list of stuff,
Dude,
but
that's a really
that's
solid. You,
that's what
yeah,
I would add to it.
I love it, man. Especially the Don't Split the Difference, Chris Voss. Not just the book, because the book is phenomenal for
Hmm.
anything you want to do as far as negotiations. But when you say you applied it and said, "Hey, check this out," put this lens on it. That's kind of the cool thing that I really like to look for.
Yeah, yeah. I'll give you an example real quick too.
Hit
Like
it, hit it.
people people need to feel autonomy, right? They need to feel a sense of control, and to take it from you and put the fire out. You wouldn't stay there very long. It wouldn't feel good. Like that's the ultimate like mastery that you want. And so in conversations, people want to feel that sense of autonomy too, and they can feel very quickly your resistance to their ideas or when you lack support.
Right,
So he got strategies in there, like leading with no's, like getting them saying something that gets them on record of saying no, because we never quite grew out of that from when we were a kid. It feels good to tell mom and dad no,
no,
right? And so you do it in a constructive way that starts to frame in the boundaries of the conversation instead of just trying to figure out where they are and where they're coming from. And you let them close doors, not you, which is unfortunately what we do so many times, right? We
sure,
take options off the table. If
sure,
I had three options here and they were able to pick it up, look at each one, shake it around, listen to it, and go, right? And they picked up the one I wanted them to do, and they felt like they did that, and they weren't manipulated, mind you. Like they authentically had that choice. They're going to feel better about that option 10 times out of 10
right,
versus being told, even if they like you, even if they respect you, even if they would die for you as a leader.
right.
Like the ability to choose is really powerful for folks. So that's just one of the examples you can get out of there. So excellent book.
I love it, man. Okay, vigilante question of the week. Every week I ask the vigilantes, "Hey, here's the guest. Is there a specific question?" And the thread starts, then I go through it and I pick it. I really like this question though, and it comes from
They
Jonah.
said they said they said who?
Who?
That's an excellent question, and it's stuff I ask all the time. So
Mm-hmm.
the first thing is like you probably have a bearing from watching him and working with him, so you have an idea, and so that individual also has an idea. And I talk about this when I do help for interviews for promotional processes. Like when you go in there and you give an answer of what you think you can or can't do to demonstrate competency for this position. There's really three people answering that question. There's who you think you are, all your skills, knowledge, abilities. Then there's who your reputation, who the person that's asking the question thinks you are. And then there's the reality of somewhere in the middle or somewhere between the two extremes is who you actually are. So you're not necessarily as good or as bad as you think you are. And you may not be, as strong, or you may not be as weak in these areas as you think you are. So the conversation is what draws that out, right? And so again, the actions and the words are what show the beliefs.
Right.
And so a lot of times I think where people struggle is they're not operating the right belief system. And so it's not hard to see why when you get sworn in or and become a firefighter, you're given stuff to take care of. You get an apparatus to keep clean and PM and take care of. You get a station to clean and take care of. You get uniforms. But when you transition to that frontline supervisor for the first time, you still got all that stuff, but now you got the most important resource that the organization could ever ask you to take care of, or the community for that matter, and it's
Right.
people.
Right.
And the operating system for things is not the same for people. And so you've got to update that. Then it's like, all right, well, what do you update it to? I think it's very simple. I think you stop trying to talk to him in leadership opportunity. You're going to get what the question's about. It's like, leadership position, or maybe it's a class on leadership, but it's probably like something to do with a title or something you're going to apply for. But then if you type in the opportunity of leadership, you're going to get the same results. Like it
Right.
doesn't understand the question, which is exactly why you need to be asking it. Is once you have the role, what are you going to do with it? And so I like to think about leadership as influence, and leadership involves the ability to make decisions, or the formal authority, or even requirement or expectation to make decisions.
Right.
But I think it's like money. If I gave you $1 million, Corley, you're gonna use that money to do more generous things for the fire service because
Right.
that's who you are. That's your operating belief. But if I gave it to someone who was inherently selfish, I'm not going to see that same money like force multiplied and getting so much more for other folks. So if that person that the question's geared at is already working with the rookie, or sees the value in training with the rookie because they watch and model you as the officer, when you give them the rank, what are they going to do more of? Like, even if it's not their job technically to do, they're going to still want to do that, but maybe they do that with the senior man who does that with the rookie, or maybe they work with the person who wants to be promoted next, or whatever that is. So it's about like focus on the things that are going right and show them, model for them as much as you talk to them about it, what they can do with the opportunity
Right.
before they get it. And that's where you let them ask questions and then try to, self level out of like, well, I don't have an answer for that. I need to go take some classes. Get, help them cheat, I guess is what I'm saying. Give them the
Yeah.
answers to the test. Give
Right.
them as many answers to the test as you can, knowing you're not going to have all of them because it won't be a different test when they get it, first of all. But B, you're gonna misremember stuff too. Give them a leg up. I don't know, leave it better than you found it. I mean, I feel like this is all like the same
Yes.
message. It's just people instead of the mission, which is probably the same thing at the end of the day if you think about it.
When you
But
really melt it down,
yeah,
yeah. No.
yeah, yep. But the fact that he's asking that type of question is exactly what I'm talking about. I know, like I guarantee you, he's already doing those things. He's already modeling that for his crew,
Right.
because he wouldn't ask otherwise if he wasn't thinking about how to help that person through that. So that's really cool.
I love it, man. And that officially makes it 175 scraps in the books with the Benjamin Martin. If someone wants to get a hold of you, what is the best way to find you, get a hold of you, book a class, reach out to you, ask a question, etc.?
I'd say hit the website up. So the embracetheresistance.com. That's got my email on it. Used to have my phone number, but I started getting spam, so I had to take that bad boy down.
Right, right.
But you can request a class, or you can just reach out and say hi. The podcasts, the blogs, the published articles. This, will be on there sharing what you guys are
Sure.
doing. So it's just it's our own little ecosystem of what our operating system is. And I'll throw this in there really quick too, because somebody asked me about this.
Hit
I
it.
told it's I don't know how you feel about this, Corley, but it's terrifying for me to write or do podcasts because it's like putting whatever you thought was right at the time in concrete stuff. So I had a guy ask me when I told him all that stuff was on there. He said, "Well, do you delete the old stuff?" And I said, "Oh, hell no! Like as tempting as it would, not going to do that." And that's when he was like, "Well, why?" And I was like, "Well, because I'm climbing a ladder, right? But I know that I'm never going to reach the top of this ladder as high up as I go, whatever that means to me, because I don't want to be a fire chief. I just want to be as good at my job for people as I can, and
Right.
good for my family, like a good dad and a good husband, as much of that. I know I'm going to get knocked down a peg or two, and the worst thing I could do is like cut the rungs behind me so that there was nothing to fall back to.
Right.
But more so, that's your way of climbing the ladder too. If there were no rungs down at the bottom, you people wouldn't get on. And so I think what brings people in the door sometimes is they have some curiosity and they see, and they probably see early stuff, and they're like, "Oh, I think this is like me. I think this guy gets me." And then hopefully they get to see my maturation of thought, my perspective develop, whether it's academically or professionally and or personally even. And then maybe that's what kind of prompts them into turning the corner on their stuff. But no, man, I can't preach like grace and humility and vulnerability and hide my stuff. So it's all there, good or bad. And
100%. You there? I lose you?
yeah, I'm still here. No,
No, I'm
I'm
making
good.
sure. Thought I did. Definitely fighting. That's it, man. Check it out. EmbraceTheResistance.com. The Vigilantes, they are live. If you are not a member, go sign up. It costs as little as $5 a month, and you are a member. We have amazing discussions, amazing guests. It's going to be good times no matter what. Every month we go live and we have good discussions about the future of the scrap, and we usually we try to bring in a guest each and every month. It's been good times. If you want to be a part, it's a blast. Go to firehousevigilance.com, pledge your support, become a part of it. Speaking of leadership, the 9 L's. Get yourself a copy. The 9 L's of Leadership, Keys to High Performance Culture. I am blown away by the reception for the book. Fantastic reviews from everybody. But if you want stickers, I'm bribing people with stickers. Go leave a review on Amazon, and I will send you stickers. Just give me a screenshot. Reviews of Amazon. And of course, if you leave a review of the podcast, I will still send you stickers. Just send me a screenshot. I'll send you stickers. I think that's it. Anyone interested? Yeah. Bottom line is we got great guests coming up. 2023 is off to an amazing January start. My brother, Benjamin Martin, thank you for being such a phenomenal guest.
Oh, thanks, brother. Love you and love what you're doing. Thank you for the opportunity.
Dude, I'm super nerdy when it comes to like human psychology, leadership, and everything else. So I love it. Audience, you make the scrap magical. I know, like towards the end, it started wonking out, and it was hard to keep track of. Thank you for tuning in live. Live is a monster all its own. There's not a lot of people that go live and just try to make stuff happen, but you guys put up with it, and you guys put up with the hiccups. Thank you. I love you all. Remember, mutts don't scrap. I hope the tone stays silent unless it is burning. Everybody, stay safe out there.